Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. No how. Can't do it. Hold on. I gotta make sure my lighting is better. I'll be right back. I've got to open the curtains and let the sunshine in. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. That's better. That's better. I got the required amount of sunshine now coming into this office on a beautiful Thursday morning. We're going to have fun today. We got lots to talk about. Let me get up the Rumble chat. See how all the Rumble folks are doing. I hope you all had a good evening last night. Hope you had a fun day. We're going to have an even better day. We got a lot of optimism here for y'all today. Lots of optimistic things going on. There's the live chat. There we go. Young Tommy in the house. Good morning. Chef Zero says, another day to have a productive, peaceful, prosperous way. Bampians indeed. Always great to see you all to start a beautiful day, says Seaberger. Charlowski says, good morning, fine people. Lee J369. Good morning, Count and Crew. JJ Fox says, block number 938,436. 67,000 US trash tokens per Bitcoin. Thank you, JJ Fox. Good morning, oh great awakeners. Another frog. Wake up, awakeners. Another good morning indeed. What a beautiful view and no weed whackers. Yes, there's always a weed whacker if there's some if there's enough wind and there is a single kite out there making its perpetual weed whacking noise, but it doesn't look like that kite's doing great. It's not that windy today, so kites are low. We know who you are. Light is fine. Thank you, JJ Fox. Awesome awakening awakeners. Great show yesterday, says Doug T36. Thank you, Doug T36. It's the best time of the day. Awakening time, says Noha. I appreciate it, Noha. It's the best time of day for me, too. Well, that's not true. I like hanging out with my wife and kids first thing in the morning and last thing at night. So I'll put that right behind those activities, which are indeed real special to me. Had a nice night with the kids. It's my mom's last day here in the beautiful island that we live on. She's heading back north. And now that February is almost over, my kids are spending the morning with her. We've got a bit of a dinner to go to tonight with the kids, their friends, and everything to help them get over the loss of their grandmother leaving. She's been with us since about the time I got back from Dubai. My wife's family came while I was gone to be with her, and then they swapped out. I was with them for a bit, and then my mom came. So here we are. Our month of visitors is over, and we'll be on our own for the last month of our time down here. Almost 2 months done already in the year. 1/4 of the century completely finished already. Can you believe that? And that's what's going on. Lots changing, though. We're going to talk about all of that today. Indeed, as you guys have mentioned, we have a massive sunrise on our hands. Sun Tech is going. Bitcoin also running 67, almost 68,000 US trash tokens. We don't care what Jane Street says. We're having fun. And so let's have a coffee, talk about what's new. Before we get into the NPC news, I want to inoculate you all from NPC potentially sounding like an NPC. And I feel like Mamdani is going to create some NPCs or expose some NPCs in right-wing politics. So the thing he did with the snow plows worked in two ways. First of all, it gave great content to Trump when Trump pointed out during the State of the Union that, of course, you need ID to be a snowplower. So why shouldn't you need it to actually go and vote? But here's the thing about it. Don't get confused about the ID question. It looks like Mamdani's thing was a big success. It looks like people actually did work for the money. It actually did unlock a bunch of snowplowers. And apparently, New York City is snow free this time around. They had as big of a storm as they had when I was there a month ago. But apparently, this time, all the snow is cleaned up. Now, it could be fake news that all the snow is cleaned up. But I just want to let you guys know that if you're out there criticizing Mamdani today, do it on the ID thing. The ID thing is definitely something you can make fun of him about, or even the thing he did with AOC about giving away free healthcare. So there's plenty of material, just like with Trump, there's plenty of material to complain about for the people who do want to complain about them. You don't need to make things up. And in the case of Mamdani, don't fall for it. It ended up working. It was a clever idea. So I have a feeling you got to watch out for that. He's going to have a few more of those. So let's not fall for any of these traps and have some cognitive security. But here's some traps that people are falling for today. I'm going to share them with you. These are some great ones. These are some great ones. Let's see what's up. Reject the cookies. Uh-oh, guys. France is sick of the political meddling. They say, no political meddling, MAGA. Don't do it. France pushes back against MAGA political meddling. A French magistrate recently went public about how U.S. envoys had tried to interfere in French national politics. Experts say it is clear that France is a target for disinformation campaigns. It's a real story. It's real. We got a lot of Trump stuff, but first let's go back to some weather stuff. How climate change helped the blizzard of 2026 become a blockbuster. As a big snowstorm was set to roll across the eastern half of the United States last month, President Donald Trump took to the social media to question scientific consensus about climate change. Whatever happened to global warming, the president wrote. But little did he know that it was obviously climate change that caused the blizzard. Global warming is blizzards, everyone. It is blizzards. Now we know. Oh, this one's great. Why experts are at it. Why experts say more people are shopping dollar stores even when they're not broke. How do you think the experts found out? It's just high quality products at the dollar store. That explains it all. We get this one. Could glaciers melt, slow climate change? Scientists thought so until now. So until now, they believed that glaciers melting was actually going to slow climate change. So that's what they're trying to say here. So before this, they thought, imagine what they're saying here. Before this, they're saying scientists actually believed that melting ice into the polar regions of the world was going to slow climate change. Is that true? Let's find out. Iron fertilization has long been touted as a glimmer of hope amid rising emissions. But a new study has seemingly debunked the theory. A long-standing silver lining to the wrath of climate change has been put under scrutiny as scientists find a huge flaw in the theory. As heat-trapping emissions continue to bake the planet, according to Euro News. Glaciers in Antarctica are witnessing unprecedented melt. Despite being geographically isolated from civilization, the demise of these vast bodies of ice has a significant impact on the entire world. Thwaites Glacier, aka the Doomsday Glacier, is already responsible for 4% of the global annual sea rise. No. I read another study that said 3. What do you mean 4? Do we have consensus? You know what's great is that we have a way of measuring the change in overall water in the oceans in the world, right? We know exactly how much water there is in all the oceans. It's so easy to calculate. It's just like, 70% of the world or something? Very simple business, right? Just so easy. Like, we don't even know the depths of some parts of it, and we can figure out exactly how much water there is. And actually, we already know that we can trace the change in the water amount to a glacier, and that glacier is responsible for 4%. It's totally credible. It's just science, guys. It's science. To put this into context, scientists predict that every centimeter of sea level rise, around 6 million people are exposed to coastal flooding. What is iron fertilization? As temperatures rise and glaciers melt, ice-trapped iron is released into the ocean. Scientists theorize that this iron goes on to feed huge blooms of microscopic algae, which can suck carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. When the algae dies, it sinks to the seafloor, potentially sequestering carbon forever. While some researchers have promoted dumping large amounts of iron into the ocean, sounds like a great idea. As part of the geoengineering drives to tackle rising emissions, others warn it could potentially cause dead zones. No way. I don't believe it. Meltwater carries very little iron. Oh no, it's not working. Science failing. This is even better. So imagine there's people out there telling you they can measure how much water is in the oceans, and they can measure which glacier has contributed what percentage of a change to the volume of water in the world. It gets even better. If you thought that was amazing science, look at these scientists. New study finds air conditioners will, my favorite word, exacerbate climate change as planet warms. Time magazine writing this. This is what we know. As global temperatures rise, the very thing we turn to keep ourselves cool could be a significant contributor to increased emissions and an even warmer planet. Your air conditioning is just going to keep making it warmer. What I want to do is put an air conditioner versus a iron glacier meltwater heating device next to each other and let them fight it out and see who wins. I'm going to do some science with that. And there you go, guys. We got problems with the air conditioning. I got this one too. It's great. Here is what we know from the San Francisco Chronicle. By accepting an invite to the State of Union address, the gold medal winning U.S. men's hockey team provided Trump a lustrous display of a new word, sports washing. We have the greenwashing, right? We have the greenwashing. Now there's sports washing, okay? I got something in my tooth. So sports washing is a real word. Now we know. And my favorite one of the day, here's what we got. I think I might have already put this one out because it came out January 14th, but I saw it again today and needed to share it with you again. The problem, guys, of unregulated homeschool. He was homeschooled for years and fell so far behind. Can you believe that I'm subjecting my children to unregulated homeschooling? Unregulated. I'm just schooling at home without regulations. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it. Here's what we know from that story. And I got this from Corey DeAngelis, who says here, they're coming after homeschooling because the government school system is an absolute failure. The Atlantic's critique of homeschooling ignores the real education crisis. So I had Corey DeAngelis do a fireside chat a few years ago with Saifedean, who's a big proponent, of course, of homeschooling. Really interesting stuff. And I've actually had this conversation with him before. Corey DeAngelis, if you don't know, is one of the biggest proponents in America of charter schools. And the whole charter school argument really was, sourced and its origins come from Steve Jobs. I don't know if you guys know that. Steve Jobs was a big believer in inducing a new consumer attitude or reinvigorating the consumer mindset when it comes to education, because he had a very simple way of seeing education, which was just follow the money. Who the client of education is who the education is trying to serve, the system is trying to serve. So if the client, in this case, is the government, if you have public schools and the government is paying for them, then they're the client. And so if you just follow the money and they're the ones spending it, then you see the whole education system is about appeasing the people that pay for it. So in this case, bureaucrats, not the kids. What Steve Jobs said was missing from the equation was parents' ability to use their consumer mindset to have different options and to take the budget they have for paying for their school and use it actively. So his model in the charter school system, of course, if you are not aware of what a charter school or a voucher school is what they were called when Steve Jobs was a heavy proponent of it, the problem there is, and let me actually see if I can find the old charter school video. I think it exists somewhere. Let me just see. Because I've always wondered the very few things Steve Jobs did not give a lot of interviews in his life. Yeah, there it is. This is the one. And I will play this one, and I'll actually just do this. And then I'm going to stop sharing, but it'll be in the right order. And I'll reshare. And here's Steve Jobs himself describing voucher schools. I don't believe I've ever shared this video with you guys before, but it's an excellent one.
And I've been very strong believer that what we need to do in education is go to the full voucher system. I know this isn't what you care about, but this is what I care about a great deal.
Well, this is exactly what we care about.
Okay, great.
This was believe it or not, this was at the end, and we're
one of the things that I feel is that right now, if you ask who are the customers of education, the customers of education are the society at large, employers that hire people, right, things like that. But ultimately, I think the customers are the parents, not even the students, but the parents. The problem that we have in this country is that the customers went away. The customers stopped paying attention to their schools for the most part.
And gave their kids to the...
Well, what happened was that mothers started working, and they didn't have time to spend at PTA meetings and watching their kids' school. Schools became much more institutionalized, and parents spent less and less and less time involved in their kids' education. And what happens when a customer goes away and a monopoly gets control, which is what's happened in our country, is that the service level almost always goes down. I remember seeing a bumper sticker when the telephone company was all one, AT&T, the Bell system. I remember seeing a bumper sticker with the Bell logo on it, and it said, "We don't care. We don't have to." You know? And that's what a monopoly is.
Sure.
That's what IBM was in their day, and that's certainly what the public school system is. They don't have to care. Now, it turns out, let's go through some economics. The most expensive thing most people buy in their lives is a house. The second most expensive thing is a car, usually. And a car costs, average car is approximately about $20,000 now, $16,000, $20,000. And an average car lasts about, what, 8 years? Right? You buy another one. So approximately $2,000 a year, right, for an 8-year commitment. Well,
I think there's a couple of them here. I don't think they're very long.
Your child goes to school, right? Approximately 8 years in K through 8, right?
Right.
You don't like to switch schools. It's about an 8-year commitment. What does the state of California spend per pupil per year?
I have no idea.
In a public school?
I have no idea.
What they spend per year per pupil is about $4,400.
Wow.
Okay? About over twice as much as a car. Now, it turns out that when you go to buy a car, you have a lot of information available to you to make a choice, and you have a lot of choices.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, General Motors and Ford and Toyota and Chrysler and Nissan, they are advertising at me like crazy. I can't get through a day without seeing 5 car ads. And they seem to be able to make these cars efficiently enough that they can afford to take some of my money and advertise to other people with it, so that everybody knows all about these cars. And they keep getting better and better and better each year because there's a lot of competition.
And there's a warranty.
And there's a warranty, that's right. But in schools, since people don't feel like they're spending their own money, they feel like it's free, right? No one does any comparison shopping. Matter of fact, if you want to put your kid in a private school, you can't take the $4,400 a year out of the public school and use it. You have to come up with, you know, $5,000 or $6,000 of your own, or even $4,400 of your own money.
Sure. Or more.
I believe very strongly that if the country gave each parent a voucher, a check for $4,400 that they could only spend at any accredited school, that several things would happen. Number one, schools would start marketing themselves like crazy to parents to get students. Secondly, I think you see a lot of new schools starting. I've suggested as an example, if you go to Stanford Business School, they have a public policy track. They could start a school administrator track. So you could get a bunch of people coming out of college, tying up with somebody who just got out of business school. They could be starting their own schools.
Sure.
You could have 25-year-old kids out of college, very idealistic, full of energy. Instead of starting a Silicon Valley company, they'd start a school. And I believe they would do far better than many of our public school teachers do. The third thing you'd see is I believe that you would see the quality of schools, again, just like in a competitive market, start to rise. Some schools would go broke. A lot of the public schools would go broke. There's no question about it. It would be rather painful for the first several years.
And deservedly so.
But I think far less painful than the kids going through the system as it is right now. And some people, the biggest complaint is, of course, that schools would pick off all the good kids and all the bad kids would be left to wallow together in either a private school or the remnants of the public school. To me, that's like saying, well, all the car manufacturers are going to make BMWs and Mercedeses, and nobody's going to make a $10,000 car. Well, I think the most hotly competitive market right now is the $10,000 car area. You've got all the Japanese playing in it. You've got General Motors that spent $5 billion subsidizing Saturn so far so that they can compete in that market. You've got Ford, which has just introduced 2 new cars in that market. You've got Chrysler with the Neon.
So indeed, if you follow the money and see who the customer is, you can understand why the whole system is oriented that way. But the reason I bring up this Steve Jobs video, and I was just reminded of it, and again, going back to what we see here from Corey DeAngelis, who is the leading instrument in getting these voucher schools created in America. So he spent a lot of time during COVID altering the entire legislation in various states so that they could be charter style. My home state of Vermont has been that way for a very long time. I think we're the first charter school state in America. Don't quote me for sure on that, but I think we were one of the first, if not the first. Now, what, first of all, the customer being the parent is right on. As Bitcoiners, I've always recognized that there is one level outside of this, which is to make the students the customer, because that's what we managed to do with Bitcoin meetup culture, in the sense that people chose to attend Bitcoin meetups, especially in the early days. And Bitcoin meetup culture has produced way more financially literate people. It's actually solved financial literacy for many, and has been way more successful than the university system, way more successful than any other education system in the world at inducing this level of participation and success. And so ultimately, I do believe that we're headed more towards a true P2P marketplace for all this stuff. But as it is now, we just have to solve the unbelievable carnage that's been left from this monopoly on education. And when I sit and I think of Steve Jobs and how his wife, his actual wife, was running this magazine that is out here criticizing homeschooling, which is just another facet of voucher, by the way. They're related to each other in many ways. To have her come out and do that, and because where did she get her money? Obviously, she got her money from her husband dying. Now, there's a lot of people that believe there's a bit of a Bene Gesserit type of thing going on with Lorene Jobs Powell, of course, because of her friendship with Epstein and Ghislaine and all that. Of course, everyone remembers the famous picture of Lorene Jobs Powell and Ghislaine together. And so there's this idea, of course, that somehow she was sicked on him, and it was less of a transparent marriage. Now, I don't know any of the intrigue around that, but seeing her out there promoting garbage like unregulated homeschooling really does speak, I think, to what we're seeing with this Epstein files business, which is something happened beyond our perception. Something happened outside of what we can see and we can put together that really did thwart a lot of our innovation, that really did thwart a lot of the great opportunities we have. And that seems deliberate, right? That Steve Jobs wasn't able to realize this vision. Now, Steve Jobs spent an entire evening convincing Bill Clinton to do this, right? Bill Clinton sought Steve Jobs' advice on a few things. And apparently, Bill Clinton tells the story that he couldn't get Steve Jobs. Bill Clinton went there to talk to Steve Jobs about tech or innovation or computers or something like that, or the internet. And Steve Jobs just spent the whole time talking about education and voucher schools. And he actually managed to convince Bill Clinton that it was the right approach. So remember, you've got these super talented people that were just flushed out of their capacity to have that kind of effect, because there is something behind all of these actions that is a kind of monster sitting there. And so the more we dig into these Epstein files, the more it becomes obvious that there was some kind of empire above Epstein. And here we see it's been about a month since more than 3 million Epstein files were released. And they expose makes one thing painfully clear. We've been living under an illusion of government and politics for years. And I think even Steve Jobs was caught up in it, not even aware of it. In the Walter Isaacson biography of Steve Jobs, it's very clear that his vetting of his wife was very superficial. That was one of the few instances where Isaacson, the biographer, really does criticize Steve Jobs and talk about, he was definitely not flattering to Steve Jobs about Steve Jobs' relationships with women and how he went about them. Of course, Steve Jobs was really cruel to the mother of his first child, Lisa. The biography gets deep into his seeming psychological problems, like he denied Lisa, he denied paternity, but created a computer called Lisa Simultaneous, so you could see that there was some form of shadow psychological suppression that was aching to get out. And so the biography, Walter Isaacson's biography on Steve Jobs, when he's describing what went into him choosing Lorene Jobs Powell, was literally like, he would go around and ask people, do you think she's hot? And that was it. He was like, it's time to get married. Do you think she's hot? What about her? Do you think she's hot? And now the story was also that Steve Jobs was so caught up in his business and his life and his work that mating and choosing a partner, choosing a wife wasn't a priority. So he didn't get into any other consequences of Steve Jobs' superficial vetting or choosing of a wife. Now, I don't know what went on between Steve Jobs and his wife or chemistry. All I know is the little bit I got from the biography. But when you see this and you see what Steve Jobs went through, and you see that now the Atlantic is out there literally trying to sink probably what was most important to him outside of his tech life, you can tell that this pulling the strings situation has some credence to it when it happens around this vital story. Anyone who has spent time in the conspiracy world already understands that real power structure stretches far beyond the political theater fed to us on TV. So who's actually on top? Who's actually pulling the strings? We're going to talk more about this JD007 because he gets deep into the Bitcoin stuff. But again, just to have a look again at all of these things that have been going on in the past few years, and just remember that all of this was sort of spread. I didn't even remember this story. Federal judge's son, 20, is shot dead, and her criminal defense attorney husband is critically injured after a gunman disguised as a FedEx driver ambushed their home 4 days after she was assigned to a case linked to Jeffrey Epstein. This was in 2020, pardon me, summer of 2020, and was immediately out of the headlines. This one disappeared real quick, didn't it? It sure did. And then you get the news. Here was Bill Gates just a few days ago trying to go on about how his emails were just about himself. Jeffrey Epstein wrote an email to himself about me and Russian women. Days later, I'd like to apologize for my connections with Jeffrey Epstein. I only had 2 different affairs with Russian women when married. I caught an STD and had to drug a Melinda to cover it up. Imagine ever believing Bill Gates ever again about anything. Remember, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs had their own rivalry. They were often spoken in the same breath, Gates and Jobs. Many people saw them as 2 sides of the same coin, software, hardware, from everything that went on in the 80s and 90s. They were the 2 richest people at one point in America, the 2 most successful entrepreneurs, the quintessential garage entrepreneurs. Of course, we know a lot more about Bill Gates' past now based on what his parents did and the opportunities he was given and probably the leg up he was given. Jack Posabik saying here, it seems obvious that Bill Gates should be placed under investigation for counter-espionage. Looks like he fell for a classic honeypot operation. Microsoft has massive military contracts, AI tech, quantum computing, etc. Who knows what he leaked? And it's getting even swampier out there. We see now, too, that the FBI was spying on both Susie Wilds and Kash Patel when the Democrats and the Otto Penn era was running the country. Here's Kash Patel talking about a lot. And this is, sort of why people don't trust anything right now, right? Even with Kash Patel, here's just the way people are talking about him right now. And I get why, right? Here's someone from the Epstein files who decided and realized there's some Logitech cloud server that Epstein was using. Here we see Dear FBI and FBI Director Kash. There's a Logitech cloud server that has recordings from cameras on Epstein's island. Installer Jermaine Ron now works for the USVI Bureau of Corrections, the kind that Epstein couldn't destroy. Not to do your job, but can you subpoena it? So saying not to do your job, and there is a lot of doubt about Kash Patel out there. But like I said, it's not some uniform thing where the government, suddenly changes. Here's the amount of government that's already working against them, right? The FBI subpoenaed Kash Patel and Susie Wiles' phone records in 2022 and 2023 when both were private citizens and part of a federal probe into President Trump. Fox News has confirmed in a statement to Fox News, Patel claimed the move outrageous and deeply alarming. Now, it gets even worse, right? There's another detail that's just completely hidden from all of this. And here, I'll bring it up. No, that's not it. That's not it either. Let me find it here. So that, there is this whole part of the government that you can't even perceive. Hans Monkey says the Otto Penn regime was eavesdropping on Trump campaign managers' calls. This should be the scandal of the decade, which probably means you'll stop hearing about it in a week. But it gets even crazier. Like, where is it here? Yeah, this is the part. The FBI recorded a phone call between Wiles and her attorney, according to 2 FBI officials. Wiles' attorney was aware. She was aware of the call was being recorded and consented to it, but Susie Wiles was not. So imagine they had lawyers consenting to this, but not Susie Wiles. I mean, what does that say about what's going on behind the curtain? So we can perceive that there is this force existing inside of our government, above our government, around our government. We are living in a complete and total hoaxocracy. That's the system. The system is hoaxes and lies, and the system is all of these projected realities continuing to come out of the source of these projections. Now, we're getting somewhere, right? We'll see that Hillary Clinton is set to testify today, and I believe we're going to find out more. The Clintons are finally sitting down for the Epstein depositions after spending months fighting tooth and nail to avoid it. Bill and Hillary have been huddling with lawyers to prep, refreshing their memories on the Epstein years and planning how to handle what could be a very long line of hostile questioning. Bill, who flew on Epstein's plane at least 16 times, is expected to face the toughest session and would be in the chair even longer than the 5 hours Les Wexner sat for last week. Hillary goes today, Bill goes tomorrow, and the video will be released to the public shortly thereafter. So we're going to be seeing Hillary Clinton answer these questions. And I suspect she's not going to be able to do it perfectly, and there's going to be all kinds of new threads to pull on. But again, we're seeing this for, the first time in 3 dimensions. We have perceived it through the fog until now, but actually seeing it play out is quite telling about what kind of a hoaxocracy we have. Here she is trying to use that hoaxocracy as it is. Again today, she's going on about the SAFE Act. You didn't have to listen to Trump's rambling speech last night to know that Republicans are trying to make it harder for millions of Americans to vote, especially married women. Now it's married women, right? And they've already made it clear, time to fight back. She's still talking about the ID thing, right? So, but as bad as Epstein is, I kind of agree with Stefan Molyneux here. Grizzy says the Epstein files are arguably the biggest scandal in human history. Stefan Molyneux says no, British cover-up of the rape gangs for over half a century, not even close. I think as awful as that sounds, it might be right. But again, that you could even cover this up shows you the depths of the hoaxocracy. There's new hoaxes that are just years in the making here, or a short amount of years in the making, but here everyone's celebrating the anniversary, marking the anniversary of the Ukraine war having started 4 years ago. And so that was 4 years ago. Remember, on day 3 of the war, you had Adam Kinzinger out there saying, the ghost of Kiev has a name, and he has absolutely owned the Russian Air Force. Godspeed and more kills, Samui. And of course, he fell for this ridiculous picture of Sam Wilde and the insane tricks that were played. But imagine you had these people out there trying to propagate this stuff, 4-year anniversary of this gem, the ghost of Kiev, hilariously, right? And look what we ended up getting from all of this brainwashing and psychological projection and from this unseen hidden force. I mean, this is the Google map of Ukraine after 4 years where the fighting has been going on, and it's just incredible to view and witness. It looks like World War I. This used to be a pine forest. It used to be full of Christmas trees. Located in the front line since November 2022 has virtually disappeared. The number of shell craters is reminiscent of World War I. Now, the extent to which we live in this hoaxocracy, we're only just starting. The Epstein stuff, the UFO stuff, unpeeling this is going to take a long time. Next up, I believe, is going to be more on the MK Ultra stuff. Here's Joe Rogan just a few days ago talking about how MK Ultra disclosure may be the darkest yet now. And you've got Rep Luna saying it's going to happen. I think our next task force will be hearing on MK Ultra. This is in reference to this Daily Mail declassified CIA files reveal chilling blueprint to manipulate Americans' minds through covert drugging with vaccines. So MK Ultra coming into focus. Here's a recent video on Joe Rogan about MK Ultra. I have a particular interest in MK Ultra because a lot of it was tested in Montreal, my hometown, and important for me to get to the bottom of what was going on with that. So here's
even besides drugs, MK Ultra is involved in a lot of psychological experiments. So not just LSD. Most people associate MK Ultra with LSD, but one of the most expansive of the subprojects is Subproject 68. It was by this guy named Ewan Cameron. Have you heard that name before?
No.
Cameron? Okay, Ewan Cameron. He is a psychiatrist up in Montreal in Canada, working at what's called the Allen Memorial Institute.
Walk by there.
And Gottlieb wanted to expand MK Ultra besides drugs because he already had a lot of people doing drug experiments. So he wanted to see if there were psychological techniques that could be used to manipulate a person. So not just in an interrogation, but can we actually control a person's personality? Can we make them behave in certain ways, make them do something? So the idea that Ewan Cameron had come up with before the CIA is involved I should mention, Ewan Cameron is a behaviorist. So he thinks that all behavior is a result of nurture, not nature. So it's the environmental input that causes a person to behave a certain way. And he thought that if you could bring a person back down to a blank slate, remove all the environmental inputs that have been put into them, and then you can build them back up in your image into whatever you want them to be. So his idea to bring someone down to the blank slate was to induce enough stress that they forgot who they formerly were. And so you reduce them to the blank slate, and then the CIA is really interested in, if you could do that, then you could form them into whatever. So Ewan Cameron, his main goal is to try to figure out what can induce enough stress in a person to bring them down to that blank slate. And so he performs a lot of experiments. His most famous one is called psychic driving, where he was doing a therapy session, quote unquote therapy, with one of his patients, and he was recording the session, and she said something about how, my mother when I was young used to tell me blah blah blah. She said something negative to her, and so Ewan Cameron rewinded that on the tape that he was recording and made her listen back to it and said, "Hey, I want you to listen back to what you say your mother used to say to you." When he rewinded the tape and played it forward, as soon as the woman was kind of quoting her mother and she listened to that herself on the tape, she recoiled. And Cameron thought, oh, you have a negative reaction to that. So he rewinded again and again and again. And he kept rewinding it. And she just got more and more emotional, had this more and more kind of visceral reaction to what she was saying her mother used to tell her. So this led Cameron to develop the concept of psychic driving, which is you record some kind of negative message and then you make someone listen to it for thousands and thousands and thousands of times for weeks on end, for hours every day. All their waking day, they basically are strapped into a headphone that is playing this negative message, and it will break them down over time. That's how you induce enough stress to break them down to the blank slate, and then you can record a positive psychic driving message to build them up into whatever image you want them to be. So that was his initial idea.
But was it based on anything?
Not really. It was just based on he had this one encounter with this woman and she had a negative reaction. And he's just trying to induce stress. This obviously seemed to induce stress in her. Therefore, we're going to start playing these negative tapes to them.
So it was just his idea.
It's just his idea.
And so one of the most bullish things I can think of that's going on is now that we do totally understand that there is this empire above, there is this psychological brainwashing, there is these deep-seated efforts to manipulate people psychologically. One of the most bullish things is when you look at the attempts to get Bitcoin caught up in this and find out that it's a complete and total scam. It's bullish because what we understand is that Bitcoin was worth targeting for these efforts, targeting in such a way that we can see that it offers a way out of this. So Jay Dyer began by dismantling the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was merely a well-connected criminal who happened to brush shoulders with the powerful. In his view, the narrative doesn't stand up to scrutiny. He reminded viewers that Epstein openly admitted to being recruited into the Trilateral Commission by the Kissinger circles and Rockefeller, and even referred to himself as Rockefeller's legate. That's not the resume of a random trafficker. It suggests proximity to the top of the pyramid. From there, he linked the Epstein files to the broader power structures long discussed in alternative circles, the Rothschilds, Rockefeller interests, Bilderberg, Chatham House, British intelligence. The emails, he argued, reveal an untouchable class shielded by agencies including Mossad, the CIA, and British intelligence. For Jay, this wasn't partisan theater. This was evidence of a steering committee operating above governments, quietly shaping outcomes behind the curtain. And when he cited emails referencing hunting people, he suggested it exposed something even more revealing, a belief that in total immunity. They behaved as though nothing could touch them. This is exactly what I said was the most revealing part of it from day one month ago. I said that the craziest thing is that they're not afraid. And of course, digital ID is a big part of the plans. We've known that for a long time. Digital dollars. Basically, the entire Vax Pass played through. But when it comes to Bitcoin, here's Jay saying, move quickly to debunk the lies. He immediately dismissed the fake Epstein is Satoshi email as absurd and explained why the premise collapses on inspection. Bitcoin, he said, isn't a shadowy, centralized project run behind closed doors. The code is public, the ledger is public, and any meaningful change would require broad consensus across decentralized nodes. That structure, he argued, sets it apart from the fiat systems and central bank digital currencies, which he described as infinitely inflatable and centrally controlled. We all know this. Epstein's involvement didn't indict Bitcoin. If anything, it suggested he was studying it, possibly looking for ways to steer it or co-opt it. It's a very different narrative. He viewed the sudden wave of headlines linking Epstein to Bitcoin as another attack, which we knew for a long time, which we covered here specifically. Then he made his stance crystal clear. I bought a lot more Bitcoin this week precisely because it's at a discount, because you have this operation. Now, why was it targeted? We understand why it's targeted. It's targeted, and there is something there manipulating these markets. I was one of the first people to tell you that the Bitcoin price is being manipulated. I'm not surprised. I'm not sitting here with the Jane Street story saying, look, they're manipulating the price. It's baked in the cake. We've known it's been manipulated each and every cycle by people who will try to manipulate it. Saylor's been talking about the manipulation for a long time. Saylor was right about Bitcoin suppression. Alleged 10 a.m. suppression by Jane Street now under scrutiny. Clarity Bill could be next. BTC pumping hard, adding 125 billion US trash tokens to the market cap today. Strategy stock MSTR was the most shorted stock in the world. Bitcoin massive rally is, what does it say? I can't get that. So there you go. And here's more. We have a pretty good article here on Jane Street Exposed. A little bit of this came out yesterday. A lot of people talking about it. Lots to recap from the Jane Street stuff. Some people caused UST DPEG and Luna collapse and killed hundreds of people. Have been selling BTC every day on leverage massively at 10 a.m. for like a year. And this isn't just normal manipulation. This has ruined people's lives. I mean, this is even myself, I'm doing great, but 4 years of dealing with the headwinds of this goddamn Luna collapse and what it did to crypto and its effect on Bitcoin. You know, it completely altered people's marketing budgets, how events were done. This happened immediately after one of the most successful events in the history of Bitcoin 2022 in Miami. And, you know, we came out of that event with Bitcoin Magazine. You know, we did okay. It was a huge cultural phenomenon. But once this crash hit a few weeks later, it really limited our options going forward. We had to fire a bunch of people. We were not able to live in the way that we had planned for the next year. Now, that's normal life. I get it. We didn't sit around and cry. But this changed materially people's lives. I mean, materially, people had to react to what was going on with the Luna crash. And of course, when we arrived at the related FTX crash a few months later, you know, lives were completely altered, and you know, people lost jobs. Forget about the Bitcoin being sold. Forget about all the trouble with the Bitcoin price. Forget about all that. Just actual plans, businesses, independent of that, actually were altered. You know, in some ways, we had one of the greatest video setups happening at Bitcoin Magazine that summer. We had created Bitcoin Magazine Live that year, completely shut down because money troubles with the Bitcoin price, mostly all related to the industry fallout from this. Here, this article by Roberto Rios, the Peruvian bull, we've covered him here before, talking about how this Jane Street thing worked. Now, the good news is shedding it means we survived this incredible attack over these years, and surviving is everything. You know, staying alive as we do this is one of the most important things. But here's what he says all this Jane Street stuff is going to do. The spot Bitcoin ETFs were supposed to be the great equalizer, institutional access, regulated product, BlackRock's stamp of approval, and they have been enormously successful. IBIT alone has pulled in over 20 billion US trash tokens since launch. But the ETF structure introduced something that Bitcoin was specifically designed to escape: trusted intermediaries with privileged access to the plumbing. When the SEC approved the Bitcoin ETFs in January 2024, they required cash-only creation and redemption. Every time shares needed to be created or redeemed, someone had to buy or sell actual Bitcoin. And the firms plugged into that process, the authorized participants, had a structural advantage over every other participant in the market. In September 2025, the SEC approved in-kind creation and redemption for IBIT, which means APs can now swap Bitcoin directly for ETF shares without going through fiat. This gave Jane Street, Virtu, JP Morgan, Marex even more direct control over the flow of Bitcoin in and out of the largest institutional wrapper. The 10 a.m. slam was, in its essence, a symptom of the same disease that has plagued gold markets for decades. I wrote about this in the Gold Endgame Begins, paper trades against paper trades, where the institutions with the most access to the plumbing can move prices before the rest of the market even knows what happened. JP Morgan traders Greg Smith and Michael Novak were found guilty of spoofing in the previous metals future market, a scheme that ran for 8 years involving thousands of illegal trades. JP Morgan paid 920 million US trash tokens in settlement. Deutsche Bank paid 30 million for the same thing. UBS, HSBC, and 6 individual traders all face CFTC charges for anti-spoofing violations. The same playbook, different assets, and every time the firm called it market making or arbitrage or hedging. The euphemisms are endless. The results are always the same. Regular people get their faces ripped off while the insiders capture the spread. So where do we go from here? The broader structural picture hasn't changed. 4.5 billion in ETF outflows in the first weeks of 2026 looks scary, but Strategy Sailors Company brought in 39 million worth of BTC, representing 99% of all public company purchases during this period. The big players aren't selling. They're waiting for the algos to finish their work. And maybe, just maybe, the algos are done. If Jane Street has been forced either by legal exposure, regulatory scrutiny on multiple continents, or simple self-preservation to pull back from its alleged daily selling program, that removes a persistent structural headwind that has been pressing on Bitcoin for 4 months. Bitcoin was built for exactly this moment, a monetary system that doesn't depend on trusted intermediaries, that doesn't need authorized participants, that can't be front-run by a former intern's back channel to a trading desk. But don't forget what got us here. The same firms that are supposed to be making markets and providing liquidity are the ones accused of front-running collapses, manipulating national stock indices, and running daily algorithmic sell programs against the very asset their ETFs are supposed to track. This is the system Bitcoin was designed to replace. And so it's a big deal that we caught these folks. It's not a little thing. It's huge, because how much manipulation has been going on doesn't just end at the news. It doesn't end at markets. It's the whole enchilada. It's everything. And I've said from day one, I've always been consistent about the price of Bitcoin getting manipulated. And I've always been consistent in recognizing that both fake news is a real thing, that we live in a hoaxocracy, but it's much worse when it comes to history, that history itself is fake. Not just the daily news that you're reading, that history is even faker. And now people finally catching up to this. The Giza pyramids could be as much as 12,000 years old and built by a lost advanced civilization, according to independent researcher Antonio Ambrosio from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Now, many people have been saying this. Here you've got the great, what's his name again? What's this guy's name again? I love him. I've watched all his videos. Why can't I remember his name? Timothy Alberino. There you go. So Timothy Alberino, I'll play a little bit of this. I didn't know about Timothy Alberino until Mike Cernovich recommended it to me in person. We were hanging out one day years ago at a Bitcoin conference and talking about all these pyramid things. If anyone, and I know there are a lot of you in the chat, and I've said this before, when Bitcoin is in bull markets, I'm always on the pyramid stuff. And I spent a lot of 2021 Bitcoin event talking about Atlantis and the pyramids and what was going on. And that was heavily on my mind in 2021, around the time of the Bukele event in Miami. And so it was at that event that I brought Mike Cernovich for a private side event. And we were just chatting, and I'd never heard of Timothy Alberino before, but I became sort of addicted to his content after. He's great. He was on Michael Knowles' show last year talking about what I've been talking about on this show for a while, that the pyramids were, in fact, appropriated by the ancient Egyptians and were predated and probably survived the Great Flood.
Knowledge was lost, and the ancients knew it. The ancient Egyptians knew it. The ancient Mesopotamians knew it. They knew it. They knew that the civilizations that had pre-existed them, specifically the civilizations from before the Great Cataclysm, from before the flood, were superior to their own. They acknowledged them as such. And this is what I'm trying to illustrate, is all over the world you have the fingerprints in the megaliths, you have the fingerprints of an advanced lost civilization, and it's ubiquitous. Cyclopean architecture is ubiquitous all over the earth. It's not that the Inca over here developed their, megalith building technique and the guys who built Baalbek developed a different one. No, it's the same. It's the same Cyclopean architecture. They're working with the same knowledge. But if you ask a Quechua person, and the Quechuan people are the native people who live in the Andes.
This guy, by the way.
If you ask a Quechua person, one who hasn't been modernized, one who still keeps the old ways and the old traditions, who built these walls?
Yeah.
Sacsayhuaman. Who built those walls? You know what they'll tell you? An ancient race of giants who existed in the world before a flood. That's what they'll tell you. And you'll find the same answer all around the world when you talk to the people and when you inform yourselves of the traditions of the people who live there. And that doesn't mean that all the traditions of these cultures are true. No, there's a lot of mythology. But mythology is designed to convey scientific information. But myths also encapsulate, more than anything else, astronomical information. And that, there's no question about that. I mean, you know, you look at the ancient world and you see, for example, you look at ancient Egypt and you see all kinds of composite beings like the Sphinx.
Right.
The Sphinx is a great example. And you have the Sphinx, which I believe originally, the Sphinx was the head of a woman in the body of a lion.
Yeah.
And I have to give credit to the late David Flynn for much of this. I read a book, the most consequential book I've ever read in my life. It's called Cydonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars by the late David Flynn. He passed away in 2012. But the Sphinx is actually that composite being, the head of the woman and the body of the lion. Today it's the head of a man but it's not proportional. The head is small. It appears to have been recarved. I think originally it was the head of a woman, because I believe what the Sphinx is marking is the exact period in time when the cataclysm of the flood occurred. And that happened between the transition of, and we're talking about the zodiac here, because this is how the ancients calculated time. It was the great mill in the sky. It was the celestial timepiece.
Yeah.
Zodiac, ubiquitous in many different cultures around the world, same figures. And that transition from the age of, it was for the transition from the age of Virgo to the age of Leo, when the cataclysm, I'm talking about the cataclysm as described in the Bible, occurred. It ensued during that transitional period between.
And so we're getting, you know, and this is the story they have, right? This is how we built the pyramids. A bunch of slaves with huge blocks, and they built this big ramp. And I mean, it's just completely absurd, right? This never happened. There's no way it ever happened. So, you know, we realize we've got this huge hidden history. We've got all these psychological operations. We have all this manipulation going on. You have Bitcoin targeted. It's a hoaxocracy from top to bottom, from our deepest history, from all of our projections of the future in the fiat world. And just look what it's done to people. I mean, here's a video of Kamala Harris's stepdaughter talking about what's going on in her life right now. Now, I'm not making fun of her. You know, I sometimes say I don't think her modeling career is going to go very well and all that. But I mean this honestly right now, that here's a video of her yesterday talking about how she's doing. And, you know, even the Kamala people are caught up in all of these hoaxes. So we have a massive mental health crisis on our hands from living in a hoaxocracy for this long. Now, just listen to her. Listen to what she's going through. And this comes when your history's fake, when you're bombarded every day with fake news, and your entire past is fake, and you're living with fake money. And this is what you end up getting. And I'm using her because, look, if everyone was in on it, you know, she would probably be enjoying her life a lot more than she is. But here's the result of this hidden world and the hoaxes and projections that come out of it. So I mean this sympathetically. I'm not laughing at her. This is not to laugh at Kamala Harris's stepdaughter. You know, like I said, I have my doubts about the modeling career. But I mean this sympathetically. This is her worldview. This is what she thinks is happening.
I feel disgust at what's going on in the world around genocides, the loss of rights, the loss of healthcare, the just general fear that everyone has surrounding affordability, their lives, their livelihood, like everything. it's just, it feels so big. I think everything with the environment is really fucking getting to me. And it is I experience a lot of climate anxiety, like a lot of us do. It's not funny. It's just like, it's one of those things, it's not funny, but you just like nervous laugh about it because it's scary. It is. It's all of these things are happening, and like what besides the small things we can do in pushing for change and fighting and protesting, and it's really hard not to sit in those moments where it just feels so heavy.
So, like I said, I'm not trying to make fun of her. I think she's being honest. I think she really is feeling this way. I don't think that's a lie. And that's the good news, though. And it's not just the manipulation of Bitcoin, but when you look at why Bitcoin was manipulated, and in the news and in media and in markets, you start to realize that it was targeted because it actually offers a way out to all of these things. It can help reset first our understanding of markets in the world and how efficient hoaxocracies are in education or in media, but it will also help our future projections. And I think it will also help us rewrite our past in a way that is more interpretable, because it's already getting there. Here's Daniel Batten making a keen observation with this Reuters article. And this just goes to show that the hand behind the system is starting to actually be affected by what's going on. And again, as you all know, I think that energy and Bitcoin are bound. Their destiny is bound. They're the same argument that Bitcoin, because it can help fix energy finance, you can actually get more energy. And finally, the news is picking up on it in a way that I think might start helping people understand the positive future that's here. And Daniel Batten points out this is an important first. Reuters are correctly calling Bitcoin mining, calling it Bitcoin mining rather than crypto mining, and explicitly linking it to reduced wasted energy. Two, the article acknowledges that there has been an increase in wasted energy at the solar and wind generator, with billions of reals in losses to energy firms. Three, reports that French company Engie is looking at Bitcoin mining at its new solar plant in Brazil to make the facility more profitable. I mentioned this yesterday, but analyzing the article more is important, as Daniel's done here. Four, acknowledges having those systems would reduce curtailments that are hurting the economics of Asu Sol, the solar and wind operator. The ability of Bitcoin mining to accelerate green energy production through monetizing wasted wind and solar energy is well established in academic literature and among grid operators since 2022. But this marks a first time that legacy media has explicitly acknowledged this. So no, I don't think this marks a change in how you should think of Reuters. You shouldn't trust Reuters. They're some of the biggest scammers in the world. It's a Canadian company, so that should tell you all you need to know. It comes from one of the worst, most Somali levels of duplicitousness going on in Canada. So, think of the Reuters as accidentally getting it right here in some sense, but that this is true, that this is possible. Think about what it's going to do to short circuit these limited visions of the future. Think about what it's going to do. I mean, that's what the public education system is right now, getting you to be worried about your future and then selling you some scam solution. So if the worries about the future are neutralized, it goes a big way to eliminating the hoaxocracy. Now you can see why Bitcoin is being manipulated. Now you can see, understanding that there is this field beyond our vision that we're starting to be able to see, and realizing why Epstein would have targeted Bitcoin, why Jane Street and SBF would have targeted Bitcoin all those years ago, because now you can start to see that it offers these solutions about our future. And from all of the innovations that are going on, I mean, just, as fake, I don't want to hear from you again, as fake as this looks here, the building of the pyramids, we're actually getting to the point where we can build stuff at a scale that the world has never seen before. Here's the 3 tunnels being created right now in the United States. And this was a favorite of Scott Adams, but it's true. The future is just digging holes in the dirt. It's not that sophisticated. You can build a Stirling engine with a deep hole. A lot of the skyscrapers, if we don't have as many offices happening in cities anymore, skyscrapers are a great way to create energy. All you have to do is open a door on the bottom and make sure there's a shaft right to the top on the skyscraper, and open a door on the top, and the funneling of air between the top and the bottom is enough to turn a turbine. And the holes in the ground that we can dig, the tunnels that we can dig through the boring company stuff here, can really help solve traffic problems. I know it's coming to Dubai. I can't wait. The traffic in Dubai is just absolutely terrible. And I heard the last time I was there that the tunnels are starting. They have their own boring machines. They're going to go dig the tunnels, and they're going to have more of that going on. But just look at the United States now. We've got 3 new tunnels going in the United States: Nevada, Texas, and Tennessee. The Nevada one's already there, but they're going to be scaling out the massive Vegas EV loop. I'll definitely be there next time I'm in Vegas, which is in just 2 months now. I'll be there in Vegas, and I didn't get into the EV loop last time, but I'm going to make sure I do it this time. Nashville, it's coming to Nashville. Music City loop just broke ground. Texas, the Proof Rock manufacturing at Giga Texas Tunnels. The boring company just pulls up a Proof Rock and starts digging indeed. So we're on the brink of all of these new jobs, all of these new capacities, new energy literacy, a much brighter future. Even programming, the whole job of programming has changed. This is from Andre Karpathy saying it's hard to communicate how much programming has changed due to AI in the last 2 months, not gradually and over time in the progress as usual way, but specifically since last December. There are a number of asterisks, but in my opinion, coding agents basically didn't work before December and basically work since. The models have significantly higher quality, long-term coherence and tenacity, and they can power through large and long tasks well past enough that is extremely disruptive to the default programming workflow. Just to give an example, over the weekend, I was building a local video analysis dashboard for the cameras of my home, so I wrote, here's the logical IP and username/password of my DGX Spark. Log in, set up the SSH keys, set up VLLM, download and bench, blah, 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 server endpoint and inference videos, a basic web UI dashboard, test everything, set it up with system D, record memory notes for myself, and write up a markdown report for me. The agent went off 30 minutes, ran into multiple issues, researched solutions online, resolved them one by one, wrote the code, tested it, debugged it, set up the services, and came back with a report, and it was just done. I didn't touch anything. All of this could easily have been a weekend project just 3 months ago, but today it's something you kick off and forget about for 30 minutes. As a result, programming is becoming unrecognizable. You're not typing computer code into an editor like the way things were once computers were invented. That era is over. You're spinning up AI agents, giving them tasks in English, and managing and reviewing their work in parallel. The biggest prize is in figuring out how you can keep ascending the layers of abstraction to set up long-running orchestration clause with all the right tools, memory, and instructions. Proactively manage multiple parallel code instances for you. The leverage achievable via top-tier agentic engineering feels very high right now. It's not perfect. It needs high-level direction, judgment, taste, oversight, iteration, and hints and ideas. It works a lot better in some scenarios than others, especially for tasks that are well specified and where you can verify/test functionality. The key is to build intuition, to decompose and task just right, to hand off the parts, and work and help out around the edges. But in my opinion, this is nowhere near business as usual time in software. And, that sounds scary to some who work in that field, but just think about the future in terms of what it unlocks overall and what kind of powers are now available. And Dickie Bush, a writer, interesting fella, a systems thinker, put it all in context here with just one of these uplifting notes today. But I think it's one of the ones that shows you that even though we have all of these demoralization campaigns going on, all of these signs of manipulation, proof positive that there is some evil force working behind the scenes, Dickie Bush says, let me get this straight. You have access to basically all the world's intelligence at your fingertips. You can run a business from your phone and computer anywhere in the world. You can reach anyone in the world with the words you type on a screen. You can watch the sunrise and sunset every day, and it never gets old. You can play 2016 EDM sets in the background while you work. You can fly in an airplane to an entirely different country in a couple hours. You can find every type of healthy food within a few minutes of your house. You can wake up and slowly chip away toward your ideal body by lifting weights at the gym. Ignore the doomers. There's never been a better time in human history to be alive. Slam an espresso and get to work. Let's have an elite day. And that's what's happening, guys. I mean, there's nothing this shadowy world of manipulation and misinformation and malaise that's being spread by all of these demoralization campaigns can stop, because the world and the future is coming at a breakneck speed. You see Trump out there. What I've been saying for a long time is a proof positive that American style colonialism is back, and that's not the banker version of extracted colonialism where you get a bunch of slaves to get some silver for you or some gold or to extract resources. Nothing like the British version of bank-led extraction and maritime law and everything that came from a maritime-based country and the extraction needs that it had. American colonialism, of course, was just about uncovering new land and sending people there to build it and get rich off of themselves what they built, and to expand the country in ways that bring electricity, that bring innovation, that bring infrastructure. It used to be just flour mills and that kind of stuff that the early colonists were building. But that moved very quickly to different power systems, to infrastructure, to institutions. And now it's happening all over again. And what I told you was one of the biggest stories that's going to happen in 2026 when you see Greenland completely Americanized, not by international law, not by the decisions of this shadowy system that we can't even perceive and understand, not by the world stage, not by any of these things, just by people going and building the old way. And here, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, XAI, Oracle, OpenAI are all going to the White House in March. They're signing a deal that lets them build their own private power plants for AI data centers. The U.S. National Grid can't handle what they're building, so they're coming with their own electric companies. They're becoming their own electric companies, and they have to. I mean, the reason we got into this trouble in the first place was because energy was mostly financed by the state. We didn't really have the manufacturing base that forced us to build energy as we did when America was a huge manufacturing powerhouse. One of the original hydro dams in the United States was built by Ford. Ford needed the electricity to build its cars, and sure, the neighbors got some of that electricity when the plant wasn't using it, but they needed to build their own, and that was the case for many electrical systems over the years as they were built by all of this innovation. Now, we'll never probably have the manufacturing that we had. I don't think anywhere in the world will have that. We're probably going to completely redesign what manufacturing and consumption both look like. But with AI and Bitcoin, we're going to need all of this energy at levels that we barely understand now. So you can see here from this, they're reigniting the energy finance system, which is one of the most important factors to get rid of the devastating and crippling vision of the future that fiat has instilled, using its ridiculous education system and using its ridiculous hoaxocracy that all of its power is based on. So, and now compare it, right? Just compare. This is Canada. This is the old system. This is the British system. This is the extractive system. And this is the difference between words, fiat world, using words to manipulate, using words to run your operating system, using words to build your hoax empire, versus actually just the American system, which is build and do and show. Carney, of course, said, the world has changed. We'll become our best customer. Typical central banker reality. Canada's now buying liquid natural gas, LNG, from Australia. Now, Canada, even Quebec, which is the weakest in the hydrocarbons in all of Canada because it's mostly Canadian Shield and there are no hydrocarbons in the Canadian Shield. It's just absolute tectonic plates that are exposed, and there's no topsoil or anything because of the glacier action that happened thousands of years ago. So the Canadian Shield's been scraped off. That's why there's so much fertile land down in the Great Plains and Virginia, for example. That's where the glacier scraped all of that topsoil too. So that's why it's so thick and amazing down in parts of the United States. But we have none of it in the northern end of the St. Lawrence River. Once you go north of the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes in Canada, all the way to the prairies where you find the oil, there's nothing there because it's just right down to the tectonic plates. It's the Canadian Shield. It's just rock. And so we don't have a lot in Quebec because we have a lot of Canadian Shield in Quebec. But we did find some liquid natural gas, more than most. But we don't take it out of the ground at all in Quebec. We just found it. But imagine we're now buying it from Australia. So this is the old world. This is what it looks like. And this is why it's dying, because the new world is about energy finance and doing and building. And you're going to see that the economic crossover here is going to become a necessity very shortly. Just look at the demand for yield that they have in Germany, for example. Holger says here, good morning from Germany, where retirees face one of Europe's widest pension gaps. The average, and so this is a country that's also looking for liquid natural gas because they're too poor. The average annual public pension, and that's the Ukraine war, falls far short of the estimated living costs for over 60-year-old people. 33% shortfall, one of the highest in Europe. Housing is the key driver. 34% of seniors spent goes to rent. 80% of Germans, 60% of Germans are over 65 are tenants, leaving many exposed to rising rents, unlike homeowners in Eastern Europe, where property acts as an invisible second pension. But that's why this demand, there's a huge event going on right now in Las Vegas, Bitcoin for corporations. It's all these Bitcoin treasury companies, and Michael Saylor's there. He gave a great keynote yesterday, but Adam Livingston here talks exactly how this can fit into Europe. They're looking for yield. That's the problem with these retirees. They need a place to just put money and it will actually return on their investment just by parking it. Here, STRC is now the global credit infrastructure. Europe is yield starved. Europe bond markets are structurally lower than the US. Pension funds, family offices, insurance capital, and retail investors are constantly searching for yield. Now they can buy a listed product on a major European exchange backed by Bitcoin credit economics without needing a US brokerage that dramatically lowers friction. Friction reduction equals capital flow acceleration. STRC cannot be stopped. It's already happening over in South Korea. South Korea's third largest pension fund, South Korea's NPS, has increased its position in Bitcoin treasury company strategy by 20%. They just did that now. So when you add Bitcoin, when you add all this innovation, here's a great prediction from Adam Townsend. Indeed, bulls trample, in reference to this quote here from Kip Heriage saying, when we tell people that we're still in the first, second inning of this innovation revolution, people look at us like we have three heads. Wait until 2030 gets here and the markets have doubled from current levels, on their way higher still. And now 2030 is important, of course, because we've heard many times these ghouls talk about their 2030 plans. I know a lot of people have heard it. Digital ID is all about 2030. So it's a race. It's a race to make money. It's a race to build competing visions of the future. And the reason it's a race and that we have to win is because most of the carnage from the hoaxocracy, most of the carnage that's gone on from all these broken brains, from fake history, fake future, fake news, fake markets, fake money, all of that has created these mentally ill people. Just like I said, I had sympathy for Kamala's stepdaughter, and I don't believe she's lying. I believe she really got the climate anxiety and all of this stuff. We have such a mental health crisis because of the hoaxocracies that the only way to win is not argument. That's one of the things we can't do. You can't argue with the mentally ill. It's not rational. The best you can do is build an alternative system that works, that makes people healthy, that makes people happy, and hope the mentally ill align with it, because arguing doesn't work. The best way you can do with NPCs is align them with power structures. Get power structures in place and they will align with them. Because there's no arguing with this stuff. Look at what the hoaxocracy has done, right, to men and women. These are 2 sets of videos just from hockey. This is the mental illness just from the hockey. From the hockey. This is what you're dealing with.
I hate to be the one to tell you this, but if you've
No,
listened to the locker room phone call and you don't understand what the issue is, then it's you. You are the issue.
You're the issue.
They're not losers just because
They're
they
not
laughed.
losers.
They were losers the moment that somebody
The
said,
hockey team
hey,
loses.
I'm calling Donald Trump.
How do you argue?
And you gathered around the phone. You went, ooh, I can talk to Donald Trump, and went closer.
Yeah.
Whereas the correct response to that would
That's
be
correct.
you, and you get out of there. Obviously, they made it worse with the conversation, but even without it, they'd already lost.
Right, I'm not reading all that. It's too annoying. No one's reading that. But look at the men. It's not just the women. I know I make fun of a lot of the women for the hoaxocracy, mental illness stuff, but look at these dudes. Notice the nose ring here, right? We got the nose ring back.
Hey, I have a message for the men's Olympic hockey team, and if you're not
moronic uptalk.
Keep moving on. What the hell, guys?
What the hell, guys? What are you doing?
If you laughed at that joke, come on.
Come on.
You're better than that. I think every one of you should give an apology.
An apology.
To the women's team, to all the girls that play hockey.
All the girls that play hockey?
That play hockey.
That play hockey?
Set a better example, guys. Be better.
Be better.
The orange douchebag just used the men's U.S. hockey team as a prop at the State of the Union. Yeah, that's our president. This fucking orange piece of shit, grifting, fucking garbage motherfucker.
The women's U.S. hockey team are heroes. The men's U.S. hockey team are an embarrassment, disappointments, spoiled sports. It's another reason why women shouldn't generally trust men.
Don't trust
We're
men.
ashamed of you, and may this legacy follow you for the rest of your hockey careers.
Fuck Donald Trump.
And, you know, they live in an alternate world. The hoaxocracies continue, but it won't work because it's just words. Here's Hakeem Jeffries trying to talk about Trump's State of the Union. Now, no one else in the world had this reaction. It's just them. And listen to the talking points. It's hilarious.
And so we're on the backside of the State of the Union address. It did nothing to help out Donald Trump's case to the American people. He's falling apart. His poll numbers
He's falling
are
apart.
an extinction level
Extinction
event.
level.
It's over for these extremists. They've lost 14 months consecutively of meaningful elections. Literally every single election that has been held since Donald Trump's first month in office in January of 2025 has been won by Democrats. And so I know people are struggling to find a reason to pierce the fact that the American people have clearly decided it's time to throw the MAGA extremists overboard and elect Democrats. But we're going to stay the course. We're going to be disciplined and focused as we were yesterday. We're going to continue to win the day and win the week and win the month, win the hearts and minds of the American people, win the year, and then win back the House.
So the falling apart, now you expect him to say that, right? But here's where Bitcoiners and Trump have something big in common, and why I think it's inevitable that we're going to win. It is, again, about this future. It's not just the future, like I've been saying, it's the past and the present and the manipulation. But one thing that Bitcoiners do really well, and something that Cosmin de Souza here notices, one thing Donald Trump does better than any other conservative leader in the world I've seen, is that he presents victory as inevitable. It came across in the State of the Union last night. America is going to win, not temporarily, but forever. The golden age is a permanent condition from here on out. Most conservatives do not have this quality. They present themselves and their ideas as a commercial break, a temporary reprieve to the dominance of the progressive left. Meanwhile, the left governs as if history bends toward them. And too many conservatives willingly concede that premise. That is why they lose. Trump has an exceptional ability to flip this on its head. To him, America will dominate, America will win, and it will stay that way forever. That sense of inevitability changes everything and makes him compelling to voters. Now, this is what's different about Bitcoiners who support Trump. This is why Bitcoiners were vital to Trump's 2024 win, mostly because we understood the difference between fake elections and real elections. We had a lot more questions about Joe Biden in 2020 because don't trust, verify. And my prediction that Bitcoiners would move towards Trump was also just self-preservational. The Joe Biden war on crypto was real. And so I saw the opportunity of us going en masse and breaking as a community more than other communities that will just continue to break down on the typical left-right divide. I knew Bitcoin as an industry would be different, mostly because we're self-interested and self-motivated and all those things. But it was a big deal that we had that. And so because Bitcoiners are selling this inevitability, this different vision of the future, it's a big advantage that we have. And it's why I think that Bitcoiners are going to be so important in the next wave of midterms and going forward in this whole revolution, because it's not a conservative revolution, right? Trump, remember, the thing that people like me love most about Trump is what he destroyed the old conservative movement. He destroyed the old fake loser, born to lose GOP. We had the same problem in Canada. Pierre Poilievre and that whole government that you see in Canada today is exactly that. These people are not treating their cause as inevitable global winning. Bitcoiners are treating Bitcoin as inevitable global domination. And that, infused with what America's doing, is one of the most important things. And you just have to realize that everyone who wants this better world, everyone who sees the hoaxocracy, and it's more and more every day. Now, the thing about the midterm, the thing about the State of the Union, for example, that Trump had to do, remember, Trump is not actually trying to persuade people during that. He's trying to or turn people. He's not trying to get Democrats persuaded to be Republicans. That's sort of out of the purview of what he's looking at. All Trump needs to do in the midterms is solve the problem for which most people lose the midterms, which is get your base motivated, get your base out to vote, because voter turnout goes way down when the president isn't on the ballot in midterms. That's usually why they lose. Opposition is more motivated because they're out of power and they want to get power back. So that's heavily motivating. Having something taken away and then you want it back is motivating. Being in power means you sleep in, you take it easy. People don't feel the urgency or the rush, and that's normally what clips governing parties, Democrat or Republican. It's the same mindset. So the difference with Trump is that he's got to motivate those Republicans to go out and vote this time, which I think he did very well at during the State of the Union. You saw him really contrast the two worlds. You saw him really underline the dangers and the type of horrors that the Biden administration were perpetrating on the American people. But now that Trump is shaking the box and creating all of these new Republicans, because of his skill, because of this better future, he actually can flip people. He can go further. Right? What we saw at the State of the Union was really motivating his base. What you're going to see from him from now until the midterms is everything to do with this future, about this golden age that he's trying to induce. You're going to see heavy, and he had a lot of golden age stuff in the State of the Union. You're going to see more of it. That's why you're going to see more Bitcoin stuff coming out of his mouth. And look at all the people that are already there ready to be recruited. We got this guy who saw the State of the Union. And it's why I predict that the Hakeem Jeffries here, who's selling you fake words, Donald Trump is losing, extremist, none of this is going to work. And why I continue to predict that African Americans are going to move heavily towards Trump for the midterms if all things stay the same. Here's just another case in point. I'm not going to play this fella's whole video. It's 7 minutes long, but here you get a sense of the kind of people that are coming to see and share Trump's worldview and that are seeing through the hoaxocracy.
So, State of the Union address. Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it. Because last night it really proved that we have some serious division within our country. And I'm just saying this as an Army combat veteran and registered Democrat that's soon to be a Republican. And I'll say that with flying colors. So I can't even, there's no point of me staying in this party. Like for example, I lost my stepfather last year to an illegal immigrant driver who's using the name of a famous Ukrainian chess player as his name on his ID. I'll leave it to you that way. I've never gotten anything from the black community like, hey man, I'm sorry that, the people that we voted in and brought in with our policies cause you to lose, cause your mother a lot of pain, cause your family a lot of pain. I never got none of that. So I knew at the State of the Union that something was going to be addressed about illegal immigrants. And I figured, there was going to be some solidarity, some unity between both parties. Like, you know what? We did bring these people in when we opened the border and they did kill Americans. We're sorry. No. Y'all so fixated. This is why I'm leaving the Democratic Party. Y'all so fixated on hating Trump that you don't care about nothing else going around. All those black people that y'all advocate for every 4 years when it's voting time, election. You're not black if you don't this. Well, some of us are victims of your policies. Some of us, got robbed by one of these guys you let out on cashless bail that should be in a mental asylum. Some of us got a child that was murdered or raped by one of these undocumented illegal immigrants that y'all let out on cashless bail. And some of us have lost loved ones that were killed in car accidents by these legal, non-English, non-sign reading, non-stop sign stopping, non-red light stopping illegal immigrants that can't speak English when DOT pulls them over. Now I'm gonna get back to the State of the Union. I just had to get it off my chest so you can understand what my mindset was when I clicked on this live stream and started watching this with my colleagues. Shout out to Patrick Brad David and Anton Daniels and Devory Darkins. No.
So just another example. There's more, and by the way, the skill level of folks is even getting better. This is why I continue to believe that the Black community in particular is going to see through all of these scams. Here's some just top level persuasion, and this is a great way of framing what's going on and what we heard at that State of the Union.
Martha. Did you hear what happened?
What happened, child?
Say we got somebody else that's gonna be on our side.
I do declare.
He got a strong name, powerful name. His name Gavin Newsom. That's right. He was talking to a bunch of Negroes the other day, and he said he just like us. He can't read nor write either. That's what he said. And if he gets in there, we might have somebody that can do more things for us.
We might get us a big house. If you what you say. Now, is it that good for you?
Don't you talk like that.
Oh, family.
Overseer Obama might hear you. And you know he's don't want us to have the things that the rest of the overseers have. If you go around there and tell Big Massa what he heard you say, then, if they don't like what you say, they got a way of making sure don't nobody hear you no more.
I knows it.
You got to be careful. Now, Martha, you get on away from around here with that kind of foolish talk. Now, go on now, get. I love you here, but you just can't say stuff like that. Not around here. Come on around the back later after the sun and sit all the way, and we can talk more about it.
All right. Love you, man.
I love you here. All right.
So you can see all this. Now, I will say, here's Whitmer figuring it out. Whitmer will be running against Gavin Newsom, I think. And here's a good lesson. Here's good modeling. She spent her time, because it is about this economic piece. Here she is saying, actually Trump's done great for Michigan.
Michigan is open for business. New factories making batteries, cars, chips are opening in Marshall, Lake Orion, Holland, Bay City, Calumet, Hemlock, Ann Arbor, and Delta Township. A new fighter mission is coming to Selfridge Air National Guard Base in Macomb County. Probably not on the bingo card, but I want to thank President Trump for his work on this.
And see, what got through to her was economics. It can't be denied. That's why the economic piece is so important. That's why people will align with power if you deliver this stuff. They're not going to align. I mean, here's a prediction. I'm speeding ahead, but I wanted to share it. It was a piece on Newsom, and Alex Berenson was talking about it. It's from the Wayward Rabbler. Gavin Newsom doesn't need a narrative. This is a remarkable piece about Newsom that makes me hope for anyone else as president in 2019, or 2028, pardon me. Here, Berenson says, spoiler alert, this is how the piece ends, and it's thoroughly convincing. Gavin Newsom is not a smart man, nor a wise man, nor a competent man, and he is certainly not a moral nor compassionate man. He is demonstrably terrible political leader. He is basically just an ambitious sociopath with a learning disability who managed to become immensely powerful due to his coping mechanisms combining with a variety of circumstances beyond his control. I make no predictions about what will happen in 2028, but can tell you that he is an extremely potent political force that anyone who wishes to counter underestimates or fails to understand at his own peril or America's peril. And yet, for all of that, I somehow like the guy more than I did when I started my research for this article, and enough American voters could learn to love him to put him in the White House. Now, I think that a lot of that might be true. But again, it just comes down to people's ability to create power systems that will make them richer, healthier, better off. And the mental illness side of this, admitting that he's a sociopath, I think shows why it's just not going to work for him. Where Gretchen Whitmer here aligns with power, aligns with systems that are working, it shows exactly why I would put her at this point ahead of him. A white guy against who's still spreading mental illness, who clearly has some form of mental illness, sociopathy or whatever, against Gretchen Whitmer, I think it's just not going to work out for him, given all the brainwashing and mental illness that's already out there. So her demonstrating this alignment with power, to me, says she's going to have a lot more traction in it. Him spreading mental illness will kind of not work. And indeed, here's, the Democrat Party in general, I think, in big trouble after this because of this optimistic idea of the future and just, motivating Republicans to go out and vote, and also seeing the sort of dead end that the Democrats are displaying and the mental illness and the craziness that's out there. Here's Glenn Beck on the State of the Union. The fallout over yesterday has more or less confirmed what I said yesterday. This was a hugely terrible event for the Democrats and will leave them in big, big trouble going forward because of the amount of tack ads that can be created, the framing, the altering of reality. And, Trump, to go back to Steve Jobs, we talked about at the beginning, his reality distortion field that he had, Trump has that same reality distortion field. And it's primarily the oscillation between optimism and condemnation of the past, optimism, condemnation. And he got the Democrat Party completely caught up in that vortex yesterday. And I think you've got Glenn Beck here underlining it.
Last night, it was a mirror. And if you were watching carefully, not through Twitter, not through the spin room, not through cable chyrons, but actually watching the room, you saw something that should concern every Democratic strategist in America. You saw something in the room that, if you vote for the Democrats, should have made you question, who am I standing with? The damage was not done by the president. The damage was done by the people who refused to stand or clap for the most obvious things. This was the worst night for any brand, and maybe twice as bad for the night that Coca-Cola came out and said, we're getting rid of the original recipe and we're going right for new Coke. I mean, that did brand damage like I've never seen before. I'm not sure the Democrats survived the brand damage that they're doing right now.
And that's what I've been saying consistently this whole cycle. I don't think they make it past this midterms. I think they're toast. Bill O'Reilly saying much the same.
Rather than chance it, the Republican Party is very shrewd.
He's looking sick.
It said, look, the Democratic Party with no leadership at all, none. Who's the leader of the Democratic Party, Cuomo?
I don't disagree. They really have to figure that out. I'm not disagreeing with you. That is a problem.
All right, big problem. So we're going to lay a trap. And the trap is going to be the Constitution, which every elected official is to swear to uphold the laws of the country, which require that Americans are protected by their government. So the question is, put Americans first on the protection list. Who stands up for that? And all Republicans leap to their feet, and the Democrats sit there. Are you kidding me? How stupid are they? They could have just stood up. That doesn't mean you are not compassionate to migrants. That doesn't mean you support unfair policies toward immigrants. It means that you understand what the Constitution says. But not one Democrat was smart enough to do it. Okay?
Which is why, right, they've been in all of this. They've been in damage control. Sean Faresh says the Dems are in damage control mode after their implosion at the State of the Union, where they refuse to stand in support of Americans. Americans will hopefully see them for who they really are. You know, it's going to create more. But again, the more important thing is to get conservatives to vote, to get Republicans to vote, to get people who share Trump's economic vision to vote. And again, it's not just an economic vision. It's a vision of the future that is counter to this quagmire, this empire of Epstein situation that we find ourselves in, this hoaxocracy, this market manipulation, this money manipulation, the manipulation of our vision of the future, all of these things at once being part of the package. It's why the more important things for Republicans and conservatives are like this. Here's Tulsi Gabbard saying, the quiet moments are often the most important. Last night, just before cabinet members walked into the House floor for the President's State of the Union, we joined together in prayer, giving all thanks and praise to God and praying for the clarity and strength to listen to him, serve him, and to do his will. So this image here of cabinet praying together before, when you're selling this vision of the future, when you're trying to get people out of this hoaxocracy, ends up saying a lot and ends up being a very powerful framework. And it's going into all of our systems, right? A lot of people talking about food more and more. We see yesterday that the folks over in the O'Keefe media thing, the spy cameras where he just dresses up in like funny, weird costumes, and then people tell him the truth, pretends to be a little gay, goes on a date, and they all tell him the truth. He did it to the meatpackers now. Trump mentioned the meatpackers during his speech yesterday. It's becoming an issue. He's given it attention. Bitcoiners have been saying this for a while. The Beef Initiative, beef.com, of course, this is a Bitcoin-related site. If you didn't know that, there you go. Bitcoiners have been at the source of all of this stuff for a long time. Chef Andrew Rule says this isn't a rancher issue, it's a government issue. We need more regional USDA inspected plants, easier financing for small processors, regulatory streamlining without lowering safety, mandatory country of origin labeling, local procurement incentives, break it down indeed. And I think it's going to get broken down much the same way Bitcoiners want to see it in the Prime Act. That's one of the Massey initiatives, much like we have in Vermont, where I am. Vermont should be the national model for the country. In Vermont, a farmer can sell his stuff directly to consumers without USDA approval or inspection, and it's a big advantage. I get my steaks directly from these farms. It's a huge thing. Owen Gregorian here talking about what happened yesterday. O'Keefe Media Group goes undercover. Cattle ranchers and insiders expose how Tyson, Cargill, National Beef secretly controlled America's beef market. The O'Keefe Media Group went undercover in CattleCon in Nashville, Tennessee, and exposed how Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef secretly control America's beef market. And more rigging. And this is the kind of rigging now that is becoming obvious, easier to see, more hoaxocracies, more market manipulation. This is more corrupt than the healthcare system. If you thought banks were corrupt, grocery stores probably worse, and all of the meat suppliers and food suppliers in the chain probably worse. And so again, this is just one of those instances where you can start selling optimistic vision of the future. And with this optimistic vision of the future, and with mentioning all of these systems, you have a chance to really change things. And these are the kinds of things that are going to attract more and more people, which is why here we said yesterday, we found out yesterday that Thune is going for the SAVE Act again, but he's going to do a vote. He hasn't mentioned anything about the filibuster yet. Mark Jeffrey with a great observation here saying that he's compromised or he's a coward. It feels like McClellan from the Civil War. McClellan in the end is the person who ran against Lincoln in his second campaign for president. It feels like Lincoln ordered him to fight. He had everything he needed, but the man simply would not engage the enemy. He fiddled and delayed and dallied. We need to lose this loser and get a grant. Well, maybe, but I do think we're going to have the opportunity to see this thing through. I don't believe anyone's going to be able to ignore it again, because you have everyone understanding and motivated for the midterms now, because you have so much attention on the voting and the cheating, and because you have so many new people still coming. You know, Trump isn't just motivating his base. He's also still converting people, and most of the people that are converting are over economic reasons, therefore self-motivated, self-interested, not just about supporting a political party, literally about getting healthy steak in your belly. And so if you need the SAVE Act to get healthy steak, you're going to get the SAVE Act. And that's why the motivations behind this are going to be too compelling, too difficult for them to ignore. And then you add the fraud piece to it. Remember, Trump is controlling all kinds of narrative between now and next November. The most important thing is going to be these audits, and as well as more declassification. So between declassification and audits, he's going to be controlling the entire news cycle from now to then. I believe he's going to do exactly what he did last summer by controlling the entire narrative over the summer holidays. Remember, they were completely unprepared for him last summer. Everyone goes on vacation. All the legacy news still tries to go off the same working conditions, summer vacations, this and that. And Trump managed to do news every single day. And that made sure he kept control of the news cycle. He didn't let the hoaxes get ahead. And that's how you fight against the hoaxocracies. You stay one step ahead of them. You get them to move on to your next story, so that they try to come up with their hoax framing for that. And then they have to keep coming up with new hoax framings, and they can't really steep and settle into one as they did with Russia. Now, all of this stuff with the Minnesota fraud, again, like I said, you're going to hear way more about audits. Here's Dr. Oz. They discovered one. And again, this is why I think you're going to see a lot of J.D. Vance on the campaign trail in 2026 as well. And this is him in charge of all this fraud audit.
There's one behavioral health organization, Mr. Vice President, in Minnesota. They received $11.5 million in Medicaid payments, but the top biller submitted 450 days where they claimed they were working more than 24 hours a day. I mean, even in the White House, that's tough. It's hard to work more than 24 hours a day. How it didn't get picked up is shocking to us at CMS. There are other red flags in Minnesota, including hundreds of beneficiaries receiving treatment linked to one location, which was impossible physically to be true. We had 8 beneficiaries in one of these substance use disorder centers, 8 who were already dead, but the center was still billing us. Not only did they let the person pass, they kept billing for it. That's the level of average we're talking about. So CMS is done paying and chasing. We don't think jail sentences are the right way out. These criminals flee the country. Many are foreign nationals. Instead, we're launching the largest action against fraud that we've ever taken. The money's not going to ever leave the building again. We're going to start draining the swamp of the crooks that have inhabited it.
And so healthcare, food, health, all this stuff is what makes all of these investigations so important, and why I think it's going to get to that point, right? Now, there's other good news here. I don't know anything about this story. Valve, I don't know what Valve really is. But Letitia is taking Valve on, and people are saying she's being crooked, which we can expect her to be. And here they say, Jeremy Kaufman says, few acts would be as beneficial to civilization as radicalizing Gabe Newell into joining the American right. I don't know what that means, but I see more people getting radicalized and pushed out. And so I see more, I guess you can say, reinforcements coming. So that's what I see. That's why I think things are changing, and the midterms are going to be a good time. I want to get to some of your comments. Oh, no, I got to stop that. I haven't done enough comment reading in the past little while. So let me read some of them. I like this one. I'm going to read from bottom to top. People will leave party-centric politics in droves, exactly, says CB Van. Chef Zero prediction, Blacks and Latinos will be jumping Democrats' ship in droves, like literally in waves of realization they have been betrayed big time. I believe that's true. Crazy Eyes, half Whitmer. There you go. That's funny. We say, Barely says, pretending to be gay to get a scoop on the meat packers, you say? Well, I don't think he had to be gay in that one. He goes gay in other ones when he needs it. I think it's when he goes after the laptop job guys, and they're usually gay, so he does gay to trick them, right? I think he did it with the Muslim one too. I think he went a little gay with the Muslim one that he did last week. So I don't know. It seems to work for him. He does the, it's so funny that he's a pretty recognizable guy, but all he needs is a Clark Kent disguise, a wig, and some glasses, and it's like, who is he? And he gets them to tell them their whole life. So it's a pretty funny thing. I'm a fan of his technique, but no, I don't think he went gay with the Meatpackers. He does the gay thing sometimes, though. Deep cover, meeting the enemy at the door, says CB Van. Best move ever, Telsey. Let go, let God perfect love, accomplish everything of eternal value. Best way. Thanks, Chef Zero, for that. I think Tulsi indeed is a great person to have in the cabinet. Americans can't handle a change in Coke. How do you think they're going to handle a very hot and destructive world war with 3 major nuclear powers? Time to talk real peace, love. We getting a clue. It's happening. Oh my, Bill O'Reilly. Well, yeah, he's not looking good, huh? I can't find the referral code, says Citadel Daniel. Once you see how fake and unstable / insensitive and idiotic these talking clowns are, you start laughing. That's an important thing. Comes to face to face with reality, leave scared. You can't buy this type of comedy. No, we love it. Our elections are fake and gay. Hollywood is no, indeed. Powerful. Do more things for us, precious. Hakeem Jeffries looks like Satan. I don't know. Bitcoin going to break, then off a last little bit. Indeed. I'm going to skip a little bit because Hank is in the house. Let me just get a few more of these while Hank gets settled. I grew up in the shadows of that Ford plant. Not sure about those paint fumes. You'll be fine. I was hoping they'd be wearing Trump suits for the State of the Union like the Stanley Cup champs when they came to the White House. I like those the U.S. wool knitted sweaters. I'm a big fan of those. Well, the boys losing it. Just garbage for communication skills, indeed. It's like those glasses are not big tip-off. Unstable stuff upstairs. The hand talking. Pay the 200 trash tokens for Claude Code. Learn how to run it from terminal. Game changer. I've written 2 apps in 1 month. Way to go, Citadel Daniel. Amazing. I was talking to a guy who served on nuclear subs. The Navy has super reliable small nukes they've been using for years with no problems. Those need to be commercially available. One of the biggest scams in the world that technology is stuck on those stupid nuclear submarines. Those got to get out there. Indeed. Chancellor on the break, the second bailout. The Genesis block contain a historical event that's forever etched in the chain. Bitcoin is a truth machine. Bitcoin fixes fake news and fake history. Absolutely true. I agree with that. So there you go. Lots of people commenting on the pyramid story. We love the pyramid story. All right, folks. So that's what we got. I'm going to bring in Hank now, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Hank,
hey, Nolan.
Good, man. Sorry to make you waiting. I had to get to some comments today. I've been neglectful of all of my Rumble commenters who do great in the live chat. We had hundreds of live chat comments.
Nice.
So
I came in at just the right time. I heard you guys talking about huffing paint, so I knew I was in the right place.
Huffing paint. Yeah, we were talking about growing up behind a Ford, one of the Ford factories in Michigan, and I guess coming out of there, the Red River or River Rouge. I forget if it's a translated word, but there's an important power plant that Ford built there in the early days of the Ford factory that I think is still running.
Ford sniffing paint. This is Americana at its finest, if I've ever heard of it, frankly. So, how's the show today? What have you guys been talking about?
Well, we went through a bit more of the hoaxocracy, right? It's kind of a good way to describe the system we live in. It's just perpetual hoaxes. So we talked a little bit about the hoax market with Jane Street and the implications to that, the Jane Street market manipulation. We went to the hoax that is history, of course, breaking news to some that the pyramids are much older than people have said. That's been a long-standing story that we cover here. They're likely much older than, and were probably just found by the ancient Egyptians. Many people believe they predate the flood. And so there's some evidence that that's true that came out today, and we were talking about that because if you think the news is fake, history is much, much faker.
That's true. That's
So
true.
there
I
you go.
mean, interesting. Well, we'll be touching on a little bit of that on Roxham TV News in a bit. You and I are going to be talking about Jane Street. And we're actually going to be joined by a special guest, Zach from CASA, to kind of break that down a little further, the state of Bitcoin currently. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today. Yeah, and then Hillary, you know, would be testifying in the Epstein sitch. So we got a lot to talk about today.
We covered that. Be there for hours. I saw she spent time before her hearing to say that now Trump's main goal is to make voting hard for married women. Because they can't get ID.
Very specific. Okay.
They well, out black people not getting ID doesn't really work because it's an insult. Now they're moving on to married women. I don't know if it's going to work.
Good luck with that battle. I'll be curious to see what she says when they have her testify. One of my buddy who's really deep in the Epstein files, he sent me something that he saw where allegedly her and someone else have been eating people. So,
Frazzle Drip is, if you want some good quality.
Frazzle Drip, that was it.
Yeah, if you want some really good quality online content, go look at the time that Patrick Bet-David interviewed Wiener. Remember Anthony Weiner? So go look at the Wiener Patrick Bet-David interview. It's one of the funniest interviews in the history of the internet. It's excellent.
Man.
What Patrick Bet-David does is he goes, I'm going to say a word to you, and let me see your reaction. And he goes,
"That's pretty good, Patrick Bet-David."
Frazzle Drip. Wiener's like, what are you talking about?
That freaking guy. Oh man, between the name and his actions, he was just ripe for comedy. But all right, I'm gonna let you
from hell.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right, I'm gonna let you finish up with your gang, Nolan, and I'll see you on Roxham TV in just a bit, friend.
Can't wait, man.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
All right, thanks, Hank. All right, everybody, that just about does it here for me. Thanks all for coming. I see lots of you in the YouTube chat as well. Thanks, Johnny Midas. Great show. I appreciate it. I'm afraid of nothing, says P-Man Van. I'm glad the P-Man's back in town. Are you kidding me? Laughing at a joke? No. They're still upset about it. They're going to light themselves on fire about this hockey thing. Trump can't make... when because people said... Remember with the locker room talk grabber and people said, that's not locker room talk, right? Okay, maybe not. But this time it was literally locker room talk, like in a locker room. And they're still trying to say there's no such thing as locker room talk, which just doesn't fly. Of course there's locker room talk. All right, everyone, that's it. One more little moment with the comments over here on Rumble. Another banger, I appreciate it. Should have fixed a decade ago. You can digitally interrogate your dates. Indeed. There we go. I like the new ones. Peace and prosperity. I argue that O'Keefe's org is a whistleblower facilitation op with the plausible deniability of, I was on a date and caught on hidden camera. Whoopsie. Yeah. It's a good scheme whenever he's doing. It's entertainment, though, don't forget. All right, folks, I'm about to play the logo followed by the thanks for watching screen. I want to tell you, thanks for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow. Come over on to Hank's show if you want some more, and we're going to talk about other things. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Again, thanks for watching. Peace.